Hi, everybody. We're going to give people a couple minutes to hop on. Thanks for being here. And we will start shortly. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started, and folks they'll be popping in as we go. Welcome to the Tribal Colleges Research Grant Program Technical Assistance webinar for the Tribal Colleges Research Grant Program for fiscal year 2026. So my name is Erin Riley, and I'm the National Program Leader for this program and have been since 2017. I'm going to hand this over real quick for Praley Chitnis to introduce herself.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Praley Chitnis, and I am a program specialist at NIFA, and I work on the Tribal College Research Grant Program, as well as New Beginning for Tribal Students and Tribal College Education. Great to see everyone. Thank you.
So we appreciate all of you taking the time to go through this, and we'll have a little time for question and answers at the end. But what we're going to cover today is just a quick overview of what NIFA does, the program overview, application details and documents, application evaluation process, tips for success, and additional information and resources. And then we can take some questions at the end. So the National Institute of Food and Agriculture is the extramural science funding agency within USDA's REE, and the REE mission area stands for Research, Education, and Economics. So what NIFA invests in is the initiatives that ensure the long-term viability of agriculture, and it provides funding and strategic leadership for programs that ensure groundbreaking discoveries in agriculture, related sciences and technologies that reach the people who can put them into practice. So we're going to move on to the program itself and the Tribal College Research Grant Program. Just a little background, the Tribal College Research Grant Program was developed or put into legislation in 2008. So it's one of the newer programs that the tribal colleges have. And we've seen just amazing strides that the tribal colleges have done over the past few years in terms of how they have built their programs. So the purpose and the priorities of this particular program is to focus on development of research capacity at the tribal colleges. So what we're really looking for is agriculture, natural resources, and the human sciences. The program aims to teach leadership skills, knowledge, and qualities that are necessary to prepare students to be competitive with other students for agriculture and related careers in the private sector, government, and academia. One of the things that is a priority for this administration are projects involving innovative agriculture technologies, including artificial intelligence, data science, robotics, and other cutting-edge digital tools. NIFA encourages incorporation of opportunities for training undergraduate students in these areas to equip them with foundational knowledge and skills to adapt to thrive in an increasingly digital society. So when you're doing your projects, there's a few things that I want you all to consider. First off is this right here, which is written in the Notice of Funding Opportunities. The other one is make sure you're following the Secretary's priorities, okay? And we'll talk about that here shortly. So go ahead to the next slide, Praley. One thing that everybody needs to be aware of for this program, there is a legislative requirement to partner with an 1862 or an 1890, the Agriculture Research Service, a non-line grant College of Agriculture, or a McIntyre-Stennis Cooperative Forestry Research School. So there are currently two 1994 tribal colleges that are McIntyre-Stennis. They received McIntyre-Stennis which is Leech Lake Tribal College and Salish Kootenai College. So if a 1994 wanted to partner with one of those two schools, that is acceptable because it meets this requirement. Now make sure that this requirement is fulfilled. You don't have to share funding, but you do need a letter of cooperation that is added to the proposal when you submit it for this particular notice of funding opportunity. So make sure that that requirement fits into this. I do know that there are some folks working on the Farm Bill to remove this legislation, but currently the Farm Bill has not passed. And so we have to stick with this legislation for this 2026 fiscal year. The other thing that NIFA is looking for is leadership skills and development. So we want to develop practical applications to increase the understanding of leadership roles, critical thinking, problem solving, communication skills, ethics, professionalism. We would like for you to connect the academic classroom experience with leadership roles and organizational activities. Provide opportunities for mentoring and shadowing for students, as well as organize leadership academies, workshops, and trainings. All can be included in this particular notice of funding opportunity, the proposals that you respond to for this NOFO. I'm going to hand this over to Praley to continue with descriptions of this particular we say NOFO, which is notice of funding opportunity.
Thank you, Erin. So I'm going to go over some program key information. So the program code for this program is ZY. Program code name is TCRGP, Tribal College Research Grant Program. The assistant listing number is 10.227. Project type, research, grant type, collaborative grant type, and we'll go through those slides in the next few minutes. Application deadlines. There are three. There are three phases. The first one is June 12th. The second one, September 11th. And the last one, the third one, December 31st. And the grant duration can be from 24 months to 36 months. We do anticipate about 20 awards this year, and then the minimum, and we'll go through these in the next few slides too. The minimum award amount is 150, and then the maximum, as you can see, we have variations depending on the grant type. And so the eligibility, so any 1994 tribal colleges and universities can apply. And I did want to bring to your attention the application submission and award limitations. So eligible institutions may not submit more than 3 applications to this program as a lead institution. So since we have different grant types, up to 2 awards in the new discovery grant type, 1 award for the area of expertise, and then 2 awards in the faculty community grant type, 1 award for workshop grants, and then 1 award for the Research Capacity Center. And so I'm going to turn it back over to Erin to go into depth about the project and grant types for this program.
So project type is going to be a research project. The grant types, we have 5 potential grant types for this particular NOFO. We have the Research Capacity Center, which is the largest amount. And we're going to go through these individually. An area of expertise, new discovery, applied faculty and community, and workshop grants. One thing that is different with this particular notice of funding opportunity from last year is that you can apply for any of these particular grant types throughout the entire year, and we will make awards throughout the year. So One of the things that we have is extra money from leftover years that we're going to be putting towards this year's grants that get awarded. So normally we are receiving about 5.5 million, but this year we have about 11 million to expend from previous year money that's sitting in the account. So that's how we ended up with this, the ability to have these larger grants for research capacity centers, and you can apply for them anytime throughout the year. We will make an award in the phase 1, which is different from last year's notice of funding opportunity. So the Research Capacity Center is a $2.5 million award, and that's the maximum that it can go up to. What we are really looking for in this is to build a center of research in which you collaborate with 2 or more different tribal colleges. So you really are trying to expand within your region, that research that you're doing, become one of the best places within that area to go for information. Maybe it's regarding buffalo genetics. Maybe it's regarding, potentially it's doing range science within the tribal college, looking at invasive species and working with regional areas, looking at invasive species. Perhaps it's a center maybe up in the Great Lake region, working with mercury and how it's affecting the environment throughout a few of those tribal colleges within that area. So we're really looking for something that works to build within that particular tribal colleges and the ones around to create a capacity center. And try to also, if you're going to apply for these awards, really make sure your administration knows that researchers need, I know I'm always going to say this, but they need time off to do the research. So it is acceptable to put in there that you can pay off to have adjuncts. So keep that in mind, and that's written right in the request for applications. So next slide. The area of expertise is a $650,000 award. This one is to really follow up on a project that you've started. Let's say you got a National Science Foundation project for a minimum amount, or you got something from us in the past that you wanted to expand on. So we're really kind of notching it up in the area of expertise, where you're creating even a better place to do research within that university. It's not as broad as the Research Capacity Center. Those research capacity centers, we would hope that you maybe have had an area expertise or a few different research projects in the past. But this one is really, if you get an award last year that was 350 or maybe 150 and you want to boost it up, that is what the area of expertise is for. Next slide. The new discovery are for your faculty that maybe they're doing a lot of teaching and they want to do a research project on something that hasn't been done before at the university. This is a perfect place for the new discovery project. Or if you have new faculty that just came in and they want to start with a research project, they don't quite have the background for the area of expertise yet, or for a research capacity center, but this is one to get those folks started and do really good research, but it's more of an introduction into the Tribal College Research Grant Program for your faculty to apply for. So next slide. Okay, and then we have 2 other grant types, and this is going to be the Applied Faculty and Community and the Workshop Grants. So the Applied Faculty and Community are ones that are working with the community, with students. It's very applied research. And so it's not quite as in depth. Maybe somebody who just wants to do a small survey within the community and they want to try to do a little bit of research that way. And then the workshop grants, it's a good amount of money for workshop grants, but you'll be surprised how much things are costing right now. These are not conference grants. I want to make sure that is clear. So when you write your your proposal. Do not put conferences. It is a workshop grant. And the idea of this is to bring folks from other tribal colleges or maybe the community around you in so that they can learn, network with each other, really try to build research within the tribal college community and hopefully come with some good outputs. So when you all go and you start to do your budget, I want you to keep some things in mind. Things that are allowable are memberships such as business, technical, professional, or organizations, and periodicals. So you can include those in your budget. Pre-award costs that are incurred 90 days prior to the federal award effective date. Okay, so what this means is if you get a notification from Fraley and myself and that you are going to be awarded this award 90 days prior to the award's effective date where costs are necessary or for efficient and timely performance of the scope of work are allowable costs. Tuition remission. So reimburse or charge student tuition costs to NIFA award is allowable. And it does depend on the program, but it is an allowable cost. Uniforms and safety equipment necessary for performance of activities under the award are considered allowable. One of the biggest questions I get about this is, can I get t-shirts with logos on them? Note that uniforms and safety equipment necessary for performance of activities is allowable so let's say for sun protection, different things like that. We cannot, through federal funding, it's not allowable to have logos. So keep that in mind that doesn't, so if you're going to do something that let's say you're having a group of students go to a college campus or something of that nature where you need to identify them, then that's when it would be okay for identification purposes, safety purposes, so you know what group you're in, but you need to make sure that within the budget justification that's outlined correctly. Unallowable costs. Construction is unallowable or renovation of facilities is unallowable. Alcoholic beverages is unallowable. So bad debt, you can't pay off credit cards or other debt to go back. Fundraising costs incurred to raise capital or obtain contributions is not okay. Alumni activities is an unallowable cost. Contributions and donations is not allowable. General costs of government, so you can't pay money from the government basically to the government. Goods and services for personal use, legal expense for prosecution of claims against the federal government. So these are some unallowable costs. If you ever run into a question where you don't know if there's something allowable or unallowable, please feel free to ask myself or Rachel Henderson, and we can help you navigate that. There's no cost sharing or matching in this particular program, so that you don't have to worry about any matching for the Tribal College Research Grant Program. And we're going to go into a little bit of the application details and the documents needed.
So
Rayleigh?
thank you, Erin. So the application details. It is posted on grants.gov, notice of funding opportunity. Again, the application deadlines are June 12th, September 11th, December 31st at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. The total funding available in fiscal year 2026 is $11 million. The program code is ZY. The maximum award amount is $2.5 million. 3 applications per institution. Again, up to 2 awards in the new discovery grant, 1 in the area of expertise, 2 in the faculty and community, and then 1 award for workshop grant. So key documents in your application, and this is also on page 17 and 18 of the NOFO. 1, the project's the project summary / abstract, to the project narrative, the bibliography and reference list. A data management plan is required, the letter of collaboration, and then the other documents. I do want to highlight the project narrative. So the project narrative has a 15-page limit, and that will be strictly enforced. 1.5 spacing, 12 point times New Roman font, up to 2 additional pages for text, figures, and tables. And then tables may be 1/5 spaced and no smaller than 11 points. So the data management plan, investigators must provide details up to 2 pages. Business and management plans include these 5 items: expected data type, data format, as well as data storage and preservation, data sharing, protection, public access, and the roles and responsibilities. So application submission. Applications must be in PDF format to be accepted by NIFA, which includes your narrative and budget justification. So the application evaluation process. First, applications are assigned to review to at least 3 reviewers with expertise in the proposed topic. And so once that happens, then reviewers will produce an individual review to each application, evaluating the strengths, weaknesses, and overall summary. And then when that is done, these written reviews are discussed in panel. The panel discussions with the other reviewers will serve on a peer review panel. And then once that panel is completed, the peer review panelists will come to a consensus on the final ranking and rating of the application. And I will turn it back over to Erin to discuss more of the evaluation criteria in this NOFO.
Okay. So some of the things to consider when you start writing this notice of funding opportunity or your proposal is that when we talk to our panelists, we take the evaluation criteria, in particular the 5 headings that we have put in here, and we give it to our panelists, and we have them score your particular proposals based on that. Now, they are ranked in hierarchy. So what that means is the first one, potential for advancing the quality of research, is the most important evaluation criteria that they're going to use for your project. So what you need to consider are, what are the institutional long-range goals, identify the problem, project a justification for the problem, is it innovative, advancement of multidisciplinary or problem-based focus, and then is there an ability for other institutions to adopt what you have done. So talk about the impacts and talk about how this is going to directly relate to the Secretary's priorities for USDA. How will it increase profitability of farmers and ranchers, expanding markets and creating new uses of U.S. agriculture products, protecting the integrity of American agriculture from invasive species, promoting soil health and regenerating long-term productivity of land, improving human health through precision, nutrition, and food quality. Those are published within the request for applications or the notice of funding application, and make sure whatever project you do can tie back to one of those 5 priorities of the Secretary. Next slide. So the second most important evaluation criteria is the budget and cost effectiveness. So make sure that you are creating a reasonable, have reasonable costs for what you were asking for. When you do your budget, make sure you go in, look at certain, if you're doing travel, get an estimate, of course, by going on Kayak and finding out what's your current estimate for airplane travel. What's the per diem rate that you have within that state? what they're really trying to do is making sure that we are cost effective and efficient within USDA. So they are putting a very um, high criteria on budget and cost effectiveness of your particular program. Next slide. What are the proposed approaches and cooperative linkages? Well, the approach of this particular project, including the methodology, the timeline, the products, the results, the evaluation, and the dissemination plan, is this going to be a good way, or is it going to be successful in the end? And then when we talk about those cooperative linkages, are those relationships already developed? Is it going to be a successful relationship? And are they going to be able to work together to provide really good outputs for the secretary's priorities, those 5 secretary's priorities that I told you about? So how will they be able to create those outputs to support those particular 5 priorities through this particular project, through the plan of operation, and through the dissemination plan in terms of what are your outcomes and outputs going to be, so that they do help to support profitability of farmers and ranchers, agriculture products, invasive species, long-term productivity of land, or precision nutrition and food quality. Next slide. Institutional capability and capacity building. This is very important, especially if you're going for the area of expertise or the centers grant, the research centers grant. Make sure that you are very clear on what your institution has, why it's the right institution to do that research, or if you're partnering, why it's the right one to do the research there. Making sure that you have the resources, the facilities, the equipment to carry out the project is very, very important. So be very, especially be very transparent. People who come in sometimes for these panels, they may know a little bit about tribal colleges, but you have to, when you write this notice of funding application, you need to understand that some of these folks don't, and they have to have it really spelled out. So sometimes the biggest mistake I see is that we have kind of a smaller community. We'll write things though they know. No, write it as if the person who is reading this particular proposal knows absolutely nothing about your institution, your people that you're working with, or anything at all. Be very, very clear about what you are doing, how you're doing it, lots of details. Next slide. And then who are the key personnel? So are they adequate to work within that particular institution? So keep that in mind. Really making sure you include why they're important to the particular project. Next slide.
So the timeline of competitive programs. So for could take 1 to 3 months for the NOFO to get released, which includes application writing and planning, and then the application due date. 3 to 8 months for application under peer review process, and then notifying applicants. And then 8 to 9 months when awards are finalized and made. On average, a competitive program takes about 6 to 9 months from application due date to an award being made to an institution. And we will keep you updated as much as possible. And then some tips for success. So before you start writing, consider, is your topic appropriate for this program, or is there a better program? Are you eligible to apply for this program? Do you understand the requirements from this NOFO? Are you familiar with the application review process? And do you have all the needed resources matching, if required, qualified / experienced staff, partners, and stakeholders to manage this project? Some tips: writing clearly and logically. Organize the documents according to the NOFO outline or evaluation criteria. Prepare the budget with a strong justification. follow the guidelines from the NOFO. They are judged on degree of reasonableness. Obtain critical input from experienced and successful colleagues. Fill out all the forms completely and correctly. Use tables and figures to help illustrate important points. And then lastly, write for both the expert and the novice. So the planning checklist. Application writing is a complex process and involves several steps. So the planning checklist can help identify and prioritize steps like this. First, locating the appropriate program. Second, assembling a team. Creating a timeline. Completing all the requirements and required forms and registration. Next, completing the required documents, editing and converting it to PDF. And then submitting on time. In addition, application package may need several documents, as mentioned in this NOFO. Complete and accurate application packages help reviewers in understanding the intended project and its requirements. Create a list of documents needed from the NOFO. Mark documents complete as you go along. And then this checklist will also help you when you're submitting the document into grants.gov. Some additional information. So using NIFA reporting portal to find funded awards. So if you go to our data gateway on the NIFA website, you can find the previously funded awards that NIFA has made. And I will turn it over to Erin if she wants to add anything on this slide.
Yeah, so what you'll see here, if you go to the advanced search button and you select program code, ZY will be the program code for Tribal College Research Grant Program. Now, what I want you to keep in mind is that this will be the first year that we have had projects under the current administration's executive orders. So they're currently, make sure you are aware of this president's executive orders, especially when it comes to DEI issues, especially when it comes to climate change and gain of function. Okay, so be aware of those. And also, I'm going to say it again, because there's going to be a lot of weight on these particular proposals put on the secretary's priorities. So make sure you look at those secretary's priorities within the NOFO and you make a project that is directly applied to those secretary's priorities. Here are some resources for you. So funding opportunities, competitive grant flow charts, and we can send this, we can potentially send this out to you as a PDF. Go to the next slide. And if you have any questions, you can contact myself and Praley at nifatribalprograms@usda.gov. So we are going to open it up for questions. And please, you can put, I see there's one question in the Q&A. And is the intention for the research capacity centers to have one lead tribal college? Yes, it is. And one thing that you need to be aware of is that with all of these tribal college research grant programs, 50% of the funding needs to stay within the primary college that is submitting. Okay, this has changed from previous years where it used to be 70%, but now it's 50%. Are there other questions? You can come off mute and just ask if you like.
I have a quick question, Erin. If an institution applies as the lead for a research center, can they also be a partner on somebody else's application?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Misty?
Actually, that was one of my questions. But my second question is, or clarification on the number of funded projects from an institution. If one person submits in phase one for the area of expertise, that means that your institution cannot submit it another one in phase two or phase three.
You cannot admit another research capacity center in phase two or phase three, but you could area of expertise or new discovery. You
Okay,
can
so
get
if
any institution can receive up to 3 tribal college research grants, but you can only receive 1 research capacity center. So you could not apply for a research capacity center in phase 1 and then apply for a research capacity center in phase 2. If that makes sense.
okay,
Well,
I think on
you
the
could if it was a
slide,
total.
on the
Sorry,
slide,
go
I
ahead.
think it said that you can only have 1 research of expertise per institution.
Right. 1 area of
But
expertise.
is that 1 in phase 1, 1 in phase 2, and 1
No.
in phase 3?
It's
So
for the
that's
year.
1. So if somebody submits one in June, nobody else at the institution can submit one.
Unless they don't get funded. So if it's end up being a low priority, you'll know at some point. So, but yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So we have a question. Cameron, Nancy?
Yeah, one follows up on that with the research capacity grants. So we can only have 1 RCC grant under this NOFO. If an institution receives one this time and next year or 2 years from now there's another RCC NOFO, can the institution apply for one under that? Is it only 1 per NOFO, so to speak?
It's 1 per year. So okay. 1 per year per NOFO, yes.
So an institution could have 2 RCC grants going at the same time as long as they came from different years, different NOFOs.
That's right.
Okay.
And we may not have enough funding next year. So to keep in mind, if you look at the request for applications, we're using money from fiscal year 24, 25, and then we're using all the appropriated funds for this year. So if we use up all those funds, then there may not be enough for a 2.5 million RCC center for 2027.
Okay. And then one other question about the area of expertise grants. It's a requirement that you have had received previous funding, federal funding, for the work that you're proposing. Is that right?
That's correct. Okay.
And could that be any federal funding? It doesn't have to be, say, NSF funding or USDA funding.
It can be any federal funding. And, even if you're getting private funding, that's fine. We just want to make sure that you have started already the research and you're really building on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Misty, is that your hand again?
No, it's an old hand.
Okay. Is this Nick Klein?
Yeah, I had a question that I put in the Q&A. There, in the Q&A section, there's a couple of questions about structure of the grant and lead award versus sub-awardees. And my particular question was, like, we're at Oglala Lakota College, we're one of the larger TCUs, and like our admin will kind of refuse to issue sub-awards just because that's a large administrative burden on our grants office. And so I guess my question is the intention for the research capacity centers, is the intention for there to be a lead tribal college that then issues sub-awards contracts to the other TCUs? Or is there a possibility for, like, NSF does, like, collaborative proposal types where then each institution gets their own award, even though it's the same project?
We don't, I know what you're talking about with National Science Foundation, and we currently don't have that system to do that. They work in a totally different system with they have their FastGov information. And so currently right now, what we're hoping for is that you do sub-awards or contracts. And part of that is that we're hoping that you use some of the institutional, the money within the institution to beef up your sponsored program office so that you can build the capacity within that particular college so that you have the ability to make sub-awards. And that's something that I think is very important within the tribal college community, is that your administration understands to move into these larger awards, you have to have the capacity within your budget offices and your sponsored program offices to be able to take on this particular $2.5 million award. So we'll go on to our subawards allowed to other TCUs from the submitting TCU as part of the research capacity grants. Yes. Okay, subawards, subcontracts are allowed. Will reviewer comments from the project turned down in phase 1 be received in time to resubmit for phase 3? There is no resubmitting in this particular program. You submit a particular project, it cannot be resubmitted until next year as a revision. And so the reason we're doing that is because it's sort of like, it's the same thing as basically you all come in within 1 month, put a project in, and we do a panel. Okay. We can't resubmit projects within the same year. Could you give an example of how an institution can apply for 2 or 3 project types? Sure. If an institution wants to come in and do a research capacity center, they can technically within 1 year. And this, of course, is going to be left up to the decision of NIFA. But if they are ranked high enough, you could get 1 research capacity center, 1 new discovery, and 1 workshop grant within the same institution. So it's just, it's going to depend on how the panel ranks these particular awards. Maureen? Maureen?
Yeah, thanks, Erin. Can you clarify a little bit on the 50%? That's the floor, right? So if in that 50%, does that include subawards to the other tribal colleges as well as to the partner institutions?
So what that is going to include, and I need to get, that's a very good question, actually, because the intent of that is to make sure that the funding stays within the tribal colleges.
Right.
And so this is a question that I think somebody was asking me, and I'm going to get clarification on this. The intention is that 50% stays within the tribal college community.
Okay,
So
if we can differentiate then subawards that would go to the partner 1862
Yep.
like institutions versus subawards that would go to other tribal colleges.
Right.
Our reading was that it would be 70% stays within the tribal college system, even
That
if
used
some of
to,
those.
and that number has changed. So now it's 50%.
Okay,
So
50%
that number has
stays within the tribal college system, right? So that includes funding that would go to from the lead institutions to other tribal colleges.
So I'm going to take that to policy and just get clarification on it, just so I don't speak wrong, and get back to you on that.
Okay.
One of the things that I want you to make sure that you are keeping in mind is the intent of the Research Capacity Center, and building up that particular 1994 and the collaborative community that you're working with, so that you don't end up giving someone going in as a lead taking $100,000 and then giving like $3 million to other tribal colleges that are going to do the work.
Understood. Will you post those in FAQs, or how will we get an answer to that?
What we will do is we are not going to have FAQs for this, but at the next meeting, first Tuesday meeting, I'll get an answer for you.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Chris.
Hello. For clarification, Erin, is that the question related to beefing up your capacity in your financial administration folks in order to manage a larger grant. Is that an allowable expense then? Was that what you were saying?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That was my only question.
Yep. Misty.
If a person is a PI, a research grant, they be a award co-op.
Misty, you're going in and out. Could you repeat that?
Oh, sorry. If a person is a PI on a research grant, can they be a subaward on a center?
Yes. Are there any other questions for this particular NOFO?
Just one follow-up on that, the 50% requirement, is that only for the RCCs or other grant types as well?
It's for all grant types, all of them.
Okay.
Yes, good question. So I'm going to say two things, and I am trying to make it very clear to everybody. When you write these research grants, any grant type, right, whether it's workshop grants or whatever, make sure that you are following the Secretary's priorities to increase profitability of farmers and ranchers, expanding markets and creating new uses of U.S. agriculture products, protecting the integrity of American agriculture from invasive species, promoting soil health to regenerate long-term productivity of land, and improving human health through precision nutrition and food quality. So these are not being reviewed by just the panel. These are being reviewed in the Office of the Secretary as well. So it's very important that you pick one of these 5 things that you're going to be doing your research project on if you're interested in being funded by USDA. The other thing I'm going to press 2 more things. If you don't put your documents in PDF format, you're going to be rejected. We're not going to send you to panel. And this happens every year. People upload their budget narrative. Something is in Excel, something's in Word. This year, it's going to be sent back to you. Make sure every document is in PDF format. You also need to make sure that you're following the executive orders of the president. So if you have climate change in there, it's going to be rejected automatically. The other thing that you need to know for these go-arounds, for every single notice of funding opportunity at NIFA anymore, is your bio sketch and your current and pending support form needs to be done in Science EV. Okay, and if maybe Janice or Praley could stick that into the chat, Science EV. And the reason is because NIFA next year is going to a different system, not the PRS system. And they're trying to get people slowly shifted over to, it's called ERA. We're not there yet, but this year they are requiring those 2 documents be completed within Science EV, printed and added to your package in grants.gov. So keep that in mind. And Praley, I think, just put it into the chat box. Are there any other questions that you have? Please note you're welcome to contact myself. You're welcome to contact Praley. And are there other questions before we go ahead, Janice?
Erin, you have 2 additional questions in the Q&A, one from Thomas Dupree and one from Wendy Greenberg.
Ah, okay. Okay, so in the NOFO, would Institute of American Indian Arts be an eligible tribal college to partner with a lead STEM college like Stiffy? No, that is not an AA partnership. That is not in legislation, that is not the collaborative partnership that you have to suffice. Now, you can partner with them, but you're going to have to still partner with a 1862 and 1890, a non-land grant college of agriculture, ARS, Agriculture Research Service, or a McIntyre Student School of Forestry. So you're welcome to still partner with SIPI and STEM, but you do have to partner with one of those 4 legislatively mandated organizations. Would broadening the focus from a past new discovery grant count as continuing the same research for an area of expertise grant? No. So if you're broadening something or doing work that you've done on and you're not doing the same work, then it's different. Now, if you're, if 3/4 of your proposal are the exact same as the one before, then that's a problem. And generally we've seen that before, and we'll only fund the new portion of it and not the full portion of it. But if you are expanding on work that you've done already, it's a totally different project, then it's fine. And we really encourage you to do that, Wendy.
Okay, thanks. I may get specific and contact you separately. So
okay, that's fine. You all are welcome to call. Oh, go ahead, Wendy.
Sorry, just one more. So you've listed out those priorities. Some of them we could possibly do multiple priorities. But would it be better to stick with just one, or if there's 2 like soil health and invasive species that happen to be invasive earthworms, for example, would that work, or would it be better to stick with just one? Okay.
I think it's fine, just as long as you're doing one of those 5. If one of those 5 are not within your NOFO, it is very unlikely it's going to get funded.
Got it.
Chris had a question in the chat.
What were the 2 documents? It's the biosketch and current and pending support form. Okay, please reach out to us. You can reach out to us. Most of you all know our email addresses, and if not, it'll be on this recording. If you have any questions regarding this particular notice of funding opportunity, and we look forward to seeing your proposals. And everybody have a wonderful Wednesday afternoon.
Thank you much.